Warning, this episode contains explicit language, crazy rat creatures from hell, backsliding with a torturous ex, and as always, childhood trauma. Also, there'll be spoilers for parts 4 and 5 of Murtagh, the 5th novel in the World of Eragon by Christopher Paolini. Listen at your own risk.
Is this a podcast, or is this just fantasy? We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. So join us if you want to nerd out. Time to start the podcast and see. Anyway, here's the show.
Hello, readers. I'm Dane Patterson, the host who also grew up as a dude that made a ton of questionable decisions. Somehow is doing really well and living with a strong, independent woman.
It's just the final way you are Murtagh. I'm Jackie Lanier, and is this a podcast, or is this just fantasy? The podcast where we also like to think our names for things have layers, like an onion. Very important, lots of depth.
Yeah.
Do you think I should rename my sword Onion? Or do you think the last word is cooler?
I know it does have layers.
Really a toss-up, I think. Here she comes brandishing Onion.
Onion. Well, if you'd like to support us on Patreon, like Kylie L, who is the absolute champion,
yes,
right? There's a link in the show notes. And if you can or just don't want to, we totally understand and just ask that you please rate us on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you, Kylie. It really means a lot to us, and I'm sure you're very, complex and layered, like an onion.
Can guarantee it. Thank you to Kylie. Also a contributor of some of our favorite questions we've answered on the pod. So that's how I know Kylie is complex and layered. If you want to send in your own burning questions to get shouted out, one way would be to slide into these DMs. We're on TikTok at Is This Just Fantasy Pod and Instagram at Just Fantasy Pod.
So true.
And before we get into the wrap up, or how you say denouement of this book, I want to do a quick recap of the torture porn to chosen family roller coaster ride we covered on the last episode.
Okay.
So we started with nightmares, finished with nightmare fights, and had a nightmare of a time getting through the torture in the middle without crying. But do you want any more detail than that? That was pretty much...
I don't. That was perfect.
That was pretty much it. Shout out Yuvek, who was a bright spot in that section.
Yes, that was a rough time.
A rough time.
But we're moving past that.
Sad stuff.
It's sad stuff, but I got some questions.
Yes?
Since we did a bit of dream decoding, if you were an ancient, seemingly omnipotent being, slumbered in the bowels of the earth,
right?
What would the nightmares you visited on the world look like?
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, what are my
what horrors?
What are my rats in tunnels?
Yes.
I don't know. I am... See, he already did metal spiders.
That's true.
I'm so scared of spiders. Yeah. I'm also, I think, peak terrified. I was just talking to your wife about this. We were on a walk.
Oh, fun.
I'm so scared of snakes. When you and I went on a walk the other day, did you notice how much I twitch and look at the bushes?
Yeah.
Yes. So we're definitely going some sort of giant snake. It maybe is wielding a chainsaw, something I have recurring nightmares about. Maybe a snake with chainsaw fangs.
A snake with chainsaw fangs.
I think I'm going with that. Yeah.
All right.
Horrifying. What about you?
I think everyone has to go back to middle school. That's what the dreams are. The nightmares are.
Well, these are things you're making real in the world, right? Like the rats.
Everyone's going to have to be.
Jesus Christ.
No, I'm just kidding. I think I'd be making. I think I'm gonna make man bear people.
Yes.
Just like werebear people.
Werebear.
I love bears.
You do love bears, but what are you afraid of? Don't say nothing. I'll kill you.
Like Murtagh. The only thing I'm afraid of
is yourself.
Is myself.
A man bear, if you will.
A man bear, if you will.
That's the nicest thing I've ever said to you.
That is. Loop it. Clip it, Kevin. All right.
10 out of 10, no notes.
Well, we're going to move on. That takes us to chapter 1, Creatures of the Dark.
Ooh.
I'm ready to get into this.
Yes.
It's heating up.
Hell
Let's fucking
yes.
go. Murtagh is going deep under Nagolgroth and realizing that it is getting warmer underground.
Bad.
Like pretty hot, actually.
I feel like this would be one of your nightmares, maybe.
Yes.
One of your favorite things about caves is that they're very cool.
Yes, another thing me and Murtagh agree is horrible.
So true.
He is sweating inside his armor after each fight, but no time to dwell on this because his vision is blurred when an arrow comes at him and bounces off his ward from above. Murtagh sends a rock right back, Eragon style, to snipe this dude. And then he turns into 3 more cultists. And I have to say, this is an odd way to try to take down a Dragon Rider. Personally, I would recommend going the route of overwhelming a rider, if I were them. Small batches of 1, 3, 5, 3, 2 soldiers at a time sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Wow.
But what do I know? I'm not in charge of a cult.
No?
Not yet.
I'm glad you're giving out advice for free, though.
Yes,
this is kind of like
exactly.
your deal with Gal.
Exactly. Murtagh obviously fucks these dudes right up, literally in like 5 swipes. He then has the exact same thought I was just having. So when we write these, I kind of write notes as I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And I kept my thoughts in because we are thinking, Murtagh is thinking the exact same thing that I was just thinking.
Really?
Yeah.
About these little ambushes,
He's like,
about the weenies?
Yeah, he's like, why are they doing it this way?
Oh my
this
God.
doesn't make any sense.
Of course.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And he's also funny because he's thinking about it himself.
Yeah.
So it's pretty great. As he descends, the green slime lighting is making everything seem sickly, which is a pretty cool aesthetic. I'm picturing some metal slowly turning up with this combat. Murtagh stopping and looking at the fucking crazy cave lighting and then running forward with Winter Sun's Battle Against Time just blaring as he continues on.
Wait, so now we have to add this to Wolf Chant.
Yes.
Okay.
Fucking awesome. You're going to love Battle Against Time.
Oh, great. I forgot about Metal Murtagh, though. I feel like it really throws a wrench in my coffee shop hipster, headcanon I've got going on.
We've got past that now. We're murdering people. It's metal.
So true.
Or nothing.
Does coffee shop hipster ever listen to metal?
You know, he dabbles in Nickelback.
Is there a little crossover?
You know? Nah, he's more of a Creed
Damn
and
it. Okay,
Nickelback guy.
okay.
Maybe sometimes. Maybe when washing up takes a real turn, you know? Anyway, he runs on using his inner eye to scout ahead and look for Bashel's consciousness. When he makes it back to the well, it is open with black smoke billowing out and more intense stench than ever.
Not great.
This whole place is just the gift that keeps on giving. Creepier and creepier.
Yes.
It's so weird.
Absolutely.
Murtagh goes back to reaching with his mind as far as he can and finds Bashel deep underground below him. Murtagh decides at this point to go even further down, taking a random tunnel entrance, which was confusing, and quickly getting confused.
Yes.
Finding shrines, abandoned guard rooms, and realizing this place is huge.
Yes, that was wild. I was not expecting that at all.
Either was I. This must be where they retreat in times long past.
Yes.
Because it must be ancient down here. But there is no time,
Okay,
Jackie.
okay.
As he goes further and further down, the smell grows thicker, and so does the air with smoke. It's a really good thing Murtagh doesn't have allergies or asthma, because that would do him in right here. I would be fucking down for the count.
This is
You know
where
what I
we
mean?
finally see some daylight between you and Murtagh. The only way.
Exactly.
If we could cure your asthma.
I mean, if he had a Claritin on him, we'd be in business. You know what I mean? Also, sponsored by Claritin. I'm so sorry. He starts to get confused as he presses on, and his vision begins spinning until eventually he falls to his knees.
Uh-oh.
It's over. Fade to black. Story ends. So he
Perfect.
Yeah. Now he casts more wards to protect his breathing.
Smart.
They don't seem to work.
Oh, just kidding.
And he starts to see hallucinations and visions and colors.
Yeah. Did you get the idea? I guess in my reading, I was thinking they work, but not completely. Like because he's cast them so hastily, there's still a little bit seeping in. But if he had them not at all, he wouldn't be able to walk down here.
Yeah, I think that's a fine
That was kind of
interpretation. I figured that it was either that or he'd already been affected by it. So the fact that he's protected from it now doesn't really matter. It won't get worse, but he's already in it.
He's
You know what I mean?
been immunized by all of the drugs he did when he was being
There's also
tortured.
a little bit of that. Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
But anyway, one of these visions I have to shout out is Tornak. We don't know if it's the horse or man. Being kind when Murtagh first met and sparred with him. The first person he ever trusted.
Probably the horse.
Yes. Despite these visions and frankly the bleak situation he finds himself in, Murtagh continues on. And I feel like we have learned very few lessons here in this book. Murtagh is alone.
Yes.
He's basically drugged.
Yes.
His vision is limited.
Not great.
He's in unfamiliar ground and dark caves.
Yes.
I will say this. Murtagh is stubborn.
As hell, yeah.
He just doesn't give up.
No.
You gotta love it. You know what I mean?
He's gotta rescue Elaine. He knows to always turn left, Dane.
Yeah, he
He's
knows.
got this.
He's got it figured out. Another lesson from Tornak. At some point, Murtagh sees more visions. A man screaming, a group of dragons flying above his head, Nasawara chained in the chamber of the soothsayer, and he does all he can to keep the nightmares at bay. He is chanting, literally hitting himself in the head with his shield, anything he can think of, until he gets to a mushroom-filled room with a gross pond, a dead cultist, and then a fucking nightmare creature.
Oh, good.
This thing is all pink with sagging skin, patches of white fur, and warts all over it. It has a huge black tongue the length of and width of Murtagh's arm, with normal human hands, a worm-like tail coming from his back, teeny lidless eyes that recoil from the light, and whiskers. Gross.
Ugh. Why is it maybe the worst part that it has human hands?
I know it is. Isn't that frightening?
I hate that the most. That and the sagging skin. Top two.
Did you ever see Dune, the first one?
No, I haven't seen either Dune movie.
Wow.
I know.
And you have a fantasy podcast.
I know.
You call yourself a nerd.
Sorry, nerds.
Well, there's a spider in one of them, just like a pet.
Yeah.
But like there is no aliens in the Dune universe. There's just like, there is, but that's a whole different thing. But
can you just give me a quick summary of the Dune lore? What is that book like this chunky?
I'm getting somewhere with this. Basically, there are people who like genetically modify humans.
Oh, okay.
So the spider you see, the feet are all hands.
Oh no!
Because it's a person that's been turned into a spider.
No.
And that's what this reminds me of.
Oh yeah, that makes
very
it.
disgusting.
I hated it before knowing that.
Wait till you see it. Murtagh feels that this thing is wrong, and when he reaches its mind, it has this overwhelming hunger that dominates its thoughts.
Yes, familiar.
Yeah, along with an anger at being interrupted from eating the cultist.
Oh, good.
Worse, there are more. And I was like, run, Murtagh, just get the fuck out of there.
Yes.
These things are weird and gross, and I don't like it.
Super weird and gross, yes.
Murtagh's a hero, though, and he doesn't run. And this thing jumps on him. He's saved only by his wards, eventually cutting it in half, while many more of them come out of the dark, chittering and moaning and laughing and generally being strange.
Yeah.
I don't like it here. Bad. Like, fuck the dreamers, fuck Elaine. I would leave her ass down here. There's no way.
I don't like it here.
Yeah, I don't like it.
This is bad.
This is bad. The horde comes towards him, and there are tons of them, like 30 or 40.
It's too many.
Murtagh stops them at first with light.
Oh, yeah.
But when he yells, it seems like they use their like large tongues to see and like come for him.
Yeah, they're kind of echolocating was the vibe I got. I also love that like he finds their weakness and he cannot help himself but like shout in victory. And it's like, dude, keep your fucking mouth shut.
Another way me and Murtagh are the same.
That's correct.
Yeah. He quickly is overwhelmed and they basically dogpile him until he pulls the same tricks as he does with the crows.
Oh, yeah.
He death words them all at once.
Amazing.
Yuck, it isn't over though.
Okay.
As he hears chittering in the depths of the caves.
Oh,
there are more.
Oh, no.
A few more come out to try to have him, and he continues on, worried that there are other creatures in the gloom, and this is a nightmare. Confirmed.
Yes.
Murtagh has some more visions, including dragons and blood. The nightmare in his head are interrupted by the nightmares in the flesh and blood climbing the walls around him.
Great.
There's a large wolf-sized insect with 4 spiked double-jointed legs, 2 small pincher arms tucked under its mandibles, a tick-like head, and a segmented body black like a beetle. It has no eyeballs, but rows of seed-sized black circles on the sides of its head. And the thing is also fucking gross and gives Murtagh the sense of a spider. But my horror show ends, praise Sindri, when it runs away. When Murtagh warns it, he will kill it if attacked.
Yes.
And I'm sure it's all fine after that.
Yeah, that thing has good sense. That takes us to chapter 2, freedom from misery, which means that spider's just gone.
Yeah.
We're not out of this Stephen King-esque nightmare pit quite yet, because this chapter picks up as the knife spider tries to attack Murtagh from behind. It seems to be actual metal made flesh, because our guy has quite a time of it with this thing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, he's able to cleave its head cleanly in half. This is feeling like a new favorite move of his, I think.
He's going for the head. He likes headshots.
And cleaving it in half.
Yes.
Wild. Murtagh continues on through the tunnels, reaching a depth where he's no longer able to sense Thorn above him. And I hate to hear that. That's never a good thing comes when these two lose their link.
Nope.
Who he still can sense is Bashel, but now she's behind him. So he has to double back, like frantically trying to find her as the visions and flashbacks continue to plague him. He's basically like making very slow progress, it seems like.
Yeah.
And we're treated to another of Murtagh's PTSD greatest hits mentioned from the original series as he relives the scene where Morzan gave him his scar. This is something he remembers from being like 2 or 3.
Yuck.
And knowing that happened and seeing it happen really are two different beasts. I'm just like, poor baby Murtagh. Morzan, that is not the way to teach your kid responsible horse ownership. Get a parenting book, my guy. I'm like, we can't just be perpetrating violence upon our small toddlers.
You heard it here first from Jackie. No violence to children.
No violence to children. Fuck you, Morzan. But like me, Murtagh seems particularly shaken by this memory, with it dredging up his conflicts over like keeping his scar and the sword that put it there as reminders of who he is and where he comes from. He thinks of the scar as like equally representative of Morzan's evil and Selena's love, but he can't quite square Zarok and the misery it represents with what he believes his values actually are. He thinks of the importance of names here, of how they can be like malleable enough to reframe the very nature of an object or even a person, as we know. He's experienced it firsthand continually in this book. And he's thinking like, doesn't the name of names give him like unique power over the true nature of objects because of all of this? It's a good, I think, leap in logic. It's something that's like been very well set up in his character to be thinking on this like conceptual level. And I think urgent as his mission is in these tunnels, that thought gives Murtagh pause. He does like stop for a second. He spends a moment like searching the depths of his being for the right name to recast Zarok. He thinks to himself, like, this is going to be an important part of being able to continue on this journey. And after he gets reacquainted with his own ever-changing true name, thank God we relearned that, he references his stolen little dictionary to make sure he has the right word for his sword.
I love this part. He was like, just hold on.
Give me one second. Let me. I know I've got a witch to kill, but let me take a moment to consult Merriam-Webster. Yes, he finally knows like what his sword represents for him now, and he wants to make sure that his ancient language is not fucked up because we know he's not been taught very well. So for him, the word is freedom or ithring, and I'm so proud of him. He's finally letting go of some of his anger and like the sense of injustice he's let color his worldview for pretty much his entire life. Feeling it as a physical sensation when he speaks the spell. And he's naming the sword as a promise to free others from their bondage. That's what his life's work is going to amount to. And I'm like, did Murtagh just have a therapy breakthrough? Or like, did he get licensed as a therapist now to help other people?
I do see this being a trouble possibly, though, with Nasawada, who's enslaved her wizards. But, you know, we'll see how far that freedom goes.
We'll cross that Gestapo when we come to it, Dane. And we'll have to wait and see, like, how he actually lives out the rest of this mission, because this profound episode has renewed his strength and suffused him with a deadly tranquility. He's not, like, running frantic through these tunnels anymore. It's almost like a slow Zen walk as he presses on this cursed tunnel crawl. Where to next?
Which takes us to chapter 3, to hold the center.
Nice.
Murtagh continues until he sees a glow and feels Bashel and 13 others around her. He's finally caught up. He enters a bowl-shaped granite room with a hole in the center and a translucent white crystals of all sizes, from teeny tiny to huge, covering the ground.
Yes, I love the description of this room.
Yeah, it's very pretty cool. On the far side is another opening that looks like it leads back up, which makes him think he is directly under the Well of Dreams, maybe where he first entered, but much, much deeper.
Of course he is. Why wouldn't he be directly deeper under the worst thing we've seen?
Exactly. Time's a flat circle, Jackie. So is this fucking place. Michelle's here and ready to rumble, dude. She's wearing dragon scale armor, which is frankly cool as shit.
Yes.
I would love to see this.
Metal as hell.
Yeah, it's so cool. Even better, the dragon scales are red and black, and from a very old dragon with like huge scales, some of which have been cut.
Yes.
So, you know, if Murtagh can win this fight, I think he needs to take this and have it tailored to him. It would be fucking sick.
Well, you know he's got a good tailor.
Of course.
He's a man with a top-tier tailor.
He's going to take it to his haberdasher. Anyway, she's holding the Doth Dart, and her 12 cultists are there as backup, and they start singing a doo-wop song. No, I'm just kidding. With two
it's a regular barbershop quartet.
Exactly. Two of the cultists are holding Elaine.
Yes.
Murtagh is angered when he sees Elaine that has been hurt pretty badly.
Yeah.
Which I gotta say, good. Murtagh needs to unleash some fury on this bitch. So I'm sick of these cultists.
Good that he's angry, not good that she's hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I gotta say, good.
No, I mean good, because like he needs to be more angry.
Yes.
You know, like for someone outside of himself.
I guess
you know?
Zen Murtagh with a killing mission was a little frightening to me, but angry Murtagh feels right.
Nah, I feel like his path is fury. You know. Anyway,
true.
they have staves in hand and start pounding the floor rhythmically while they chant, and I can totally picture Murtagh and Bashel closing in, which in this case makes sense.
Yeah.
The cultists can't really do anything to Murtagh, so this is just down to the witch and the rider, which is very cool. Bashel talks some shit, saying people are mostly driven mad by the smoke down the caves, but more interesting is what she says about the creatures below the earth.
Yeah.
She calls them mites and fleas of Azlagur.
Yes.
Which gives me this weird thought that whatever this thing is, it must be fucking huge if she's being literal.
Yes, absolutely.
But if she's being figurative, or if, like she said earlier, and this is the place Egglesur makes his dreams real, we are talking about a pretty powerful and straight up evil nightmare being.
Yes.
Either way, Azlagur is not a chill dude, I think.
No, I was thinking about this. I feel like Murtagh may be a bit of a slow learner, but I would not say the same about you. Only one book removed from the inheritance cycle, and you didn't even try to present Azlagur's case for him. No red string gal treatment here. You just think this guy's bad. And I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I feel like I've grown.
That's growth.
All you had to do was put a emo warrior against him, and I was in.
Yes, you're like, no, that guy sucks.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sold.
I don't know who this guy's enemies are, but I'm with him. All of a sudden, a huge amount of smoke and heat come from the hole, and Bashel explains that they are in Oth Orim,
Yes.
the hidden heart of the world, the center of all being, a place no outsider has ever stepped foot in.
And maybe no outsider is ever going to leave.
Yeah, who can say?
Uh-oh.
Murtagh tells her to surrender or he's going to kill her.
Great.
And Azlagur creates an earthquake to shake the room in response. It's crazy.
Yeah.
What the fuck is this thing?
Yeah, it seems bad.
Elaine and Bashel yell at each other when Bashel explains that Azlagur does not care about dragons. She calls them little worms and essentially says that they are only aspects of Azlagur.
Mm-hmm.
So is Azlagur a proto-dragon confirmed? Like a deep ancient ancestor before the pact?
Yes, that's my headcanon for sure.
We know that really old dragons dream in stasis,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about things. Is this just a very, very, very large and powerful like dragon type thing, dreaming so strongly about the destruction of the world? These cultists have popped up around it?
I kind of think so.
That leads me to another thought, though. What if Grieve is not actually like an Urgle?
Like a half Urgle?
A half Urgle, but he's like a proto-human or proto-Urgle or like some missing link between dwarfs and humans, like we were talking about?
Yes, they're like dwarves and Urgles.
Yeah. Like, is this the Savage Lands and X-Men? Like, is that where we are?
I don't really know what that means. Not a big X-Men head, Dane.
Oh my
but
gosh. Of course you're not.
I know, but I think that really tracks for me. I think there's enough evidence, even seated in the original inheritance cycle, which I do like. It does feel like Christopher Paolini is like pulling threads here where he can.
Yes.
It all feels just very before time, before world and time.
Totally. Well, we can't dwell on that either because Bashel goes to kill Elaine and Murtagh uses his mind and his body to attack her. But the cultists join Bashel's mind and they all attack at once. Again, Murtagh proves that he might be the best mind defender in the world as he not only holds them back, but pushes them back.
Yeah.
Bashel tries one more time to get him to join her cult, pressing his mind until all Murtagh can do is essentially be stubborn and hold on to himself. The fucking MVP is Elaine.
Yes.
She makes a move, getting hit by some magic that bounces off her because of her amulet.
Yes.
She like runs up, makes it to
fuck
Murtagh.
you, Bashel.
Yeah, it's fucking cool. Puts her raven skull amulet around his neck.
Yes.
Which is fucking badass. Elaine is truly a hero here.
Absolutely. And as soon as it's on his neck, they can't sense his mind,
Yeah,
right?
it's
like
just
the mind
done.
fight portion of this.
It's over.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Murtagh wastes no time.
Hell yeah.
He kills and then starts just maiming the cultists. Bashel shoots fire at him, lighting one of her own cultists on fire. But despite her trying to slow him down, Murtagh kills all the cultists with ruthless efficiency.
Yes.
The earthquakes get more frequent and the crystals start breaking. It's all chaos when Bashel comes in and stabs Nirnan right through Murtagh's armor, puncturing his lung.
Fuck.
Come on, Chris.
So bad. I do love that Bashel, true to this, through the very end, cares not at all about anybody who serves her. She's just like, light him up. Who gives a fuck?
Shit? Bashel crushes Murtagh's raven amulet.
Yes.
And she attacks while she throws insults at him. Murtagh, injured, tired, and trying not to breathe too fast, lest he die,
Yeah.
seems outmatched. He has no wards to protect him at all, and his sword can't break her wards quite as well. So Murtagh tries a different tactic and goes for her mind. It starts to work, but it's a mind and body fight that's going to drag on a while, and Murtagh slowly is dying of blood loss. But just as steadily, he starts to lock down her mind.
Yes.
She uses magic while they're linked, which we know is a huge magic fight no-no.
Yes.
Justice for Karn, by the way.
Justice for Karn.
And it dawns on Murtagh that she does not know the ancient language or the rules of duels.
Yeah.
And maybe there's something here he can work with. So on a gamble, he decides to use magic too, thinking she won't react like the normal magician would.
Yes.
And they start slinging spells and attacking minds while fighting.
Crazy.
It's fucking insane. And I will say, Michelle sounds like a little better here since she doesn't have to use the ancient language. And what's worse, Murtagh uses up all of his stored energy he has.
He's
on
like through the Ruby and Zarok at this point.
Yeah, he's tapped everything out.
Yeah.
They both are exhausted and it looks grim, but Murtagh's wily ass comes up with one last idea. He uses
one last job, Dane.
It's one last job. He's getting too old for this shit. Anyway, he uses the surroundings instead of direct attacks.
Yes.
Bluffing that he's almost spent and using magic to block her vision for just a second. So she steps on a classically booby-trapped crystal.
Perfect.
He puts an if spell on it so that when it breaks, it triggers the gigantic crystal above her to break as well, smashing her bottom half under the weight of this huge thing. It's fucking gnarly. He did it!
Yes.
Fucking got her.
She's pinned, dog.
Yeah, but she's still fighting. So Michelle and Murtagh lock up, pushing magic against each other. And I'm thinking like 8th Harry Potter movie where Voldemort and Harry have their like magic pushing between them scene.
Yes.
But while they do this, Murtagh steps closer. Inevitable. Locking like his eyes with her and splits her skull fucking right open. Fuck yeah!
Yes, the good old Abraca face split strikes again. I think Nynaeve from Wheel of Time would be very proud of this approach.
Definitely. Although he does pass out after this.
Whoops.
Paolini loves the fading characters, doesn't he?
Yes, he does, yeah. Especially like end of chapter, fade to black.
Yeah.
Just light head trauma. Everything's fine. That does lead us to chapter 4, Islinger. And are we permitted, Dane, do you think like a little Ding Dong the Witch is dead? Or is that a little too on the nose? I guess it would be hard to be on the nose for Michelle. She doesn't have one anymore.
Brutal.
Okay, I'm done. A man is unconscious, Dane.
Yeah.
Be
A
serious.
woman is dead,
A
Jackie.
woman is dead. This chapter starts as Murtagh comes to, still in the cave and presumably bleeding out perilously from his punctured lung.
Yeah.
Seems like a bit of a ticking time bomb.
It's not great.
Nope.
It's not great.
Nope. But he spares a second to etch Bashel's broken body in his memory before radiating up to Thorn. He's like, I want to remember that.
I remember you dead.
Yes. They do a full merge and we get our first little passage of Thorn's POV here. He seems to have thoroughly destroyed Nal Gorgoth, shaking off like a litany of arrow wounds to his wings in order to yell at Murtagh for not healing his open lung. Thorn's like, I'm not hurt. I'm fine. You though, bro.
You should fix that.
Get your shit together. Murtagh takes a hint from the ominously shaking cavern and gets his ass in gear. He's like, okay, maybe I should get out of here.
Gotta go.
He wrenches Ithring out of Bashel's skull before making his way over to check on Elaine and healing her with strength that seems like he must have burned a while ago. I do not know how he's doing this.
Yeah, he's on fumes right now.
Yes, he does slip unconscious again, so that makes sense. As we flash back over to Thorn, this chapter is just like whiplash, flash around. But Thorn is rallying Yuvek to go help Murtagh, and down in the cave, Murtagh and Elaine are both getting their wits back about them as the mountain continues to quake and disintegrate around them. Murtagh really doesn't learn. He can't leave without knowing what forces are still causing the cataclysm down here. He creeps his way over to the pit in the center of the room before passing out again. And we're back in Thorn's POV, getting his side of the panic attack that sets in as he tries to go in the cave.
Yeah.
Yuthek tries to like goad him on, but with a stab of self-loathing, Thorn takes to the sky. And Murtagh, back with Murtagh, conscious once again, knows his soul partner again isn't coming for him. It's that like sense of dread, help is not coming.
Yeah.
And that thought tortures him as he continues to creep toward the hole.
It would suck.
It would really be sad. It would be like just an isolation, I think, a desolation to him. But another black sun vision attempts to take him, but he shrugs it off as he finally looks down into the mountain's gaping maw. He barely catches like a flowing movement before the smoke erupts and he passes out yet again. And we're treated to, back in Thorn's POV, Yuvek finally coaxing Thorn into the cave with a mix of some good old-fashioned negging, but also gentle wisdom. It's like he's kind of trying to have it both ways.
I feel like this is a perfect combo.
100%. Do you think there's anything Yuvek can't do?
No, he's perfect.
Yes, he's tough
a
love.
Perfect boy.
It's love.
Yeah.
It's working.
It's working. Of course it's working.
Yes. So Murtagh wakes again, heaving from the smoke inhalation and truly on death's door, but mostly just proud of Thorn for beating the panic to come to his aid. And that really got me. I'm just like, look at these two. They're growing, dude.
Yeah, they're facing their fears. They're facing themselves.
Yes. And while he waits for Thorn, Murtagh probes the mountain for anything living in its depths, and boy, does he find something. It's incomprehensibly large, with an insatiable hunger and an unmistakably evil disposition. And on cue, the earthquake ratchets up a notch.
Oh, no.
This thing does not like being poked in its consciousness.
Ooh.
It searches for the speck of dust that disturbed it, and Murtagh does the only thing he can think of to throw it off, which is the magnifying glass spell he used that caused an explosion all the way back in that travel chapter.
Yeah.
He focuses the blast directly on the pit and passes out basically as soon as it explodes.
The CTE is imminent.
Yes, this is really getting dire at this point. The stacked concussions can't be
healthy.
Can't be good. When he wakes in the burned out cavern, the pit feels empty, but he is fading really fast. And at truly the last second, Thorn and Yuvek roll in to save the day. Yuvek does some triage with his healing charm, which we really need.
Yeah.
But he says Murtagh is going to need someone like with a little more magical knowledge to clear the blood out of his lungs so he doesn't drown in it.
So Yuvek is not a physician, so we have Eragon, OBGYN. Oh, no, neonatal surgeon.
Neonatal surgeon.
Arya, OBGYN. Murtagh, child's physician.
Yes, Murtagh.
He's a pediatrician.
Yes, Murtagh,
right?
Pediatrician.
And we have Yuvek, who's like a medic.
EMT.
EMT.
Yeah. EMT or like ER nurse, I would say.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes. Yuvek loads Murtagh up, and as he's trying like desperately to tell them to go get Elaine, like he's like, she's not dead, you guys have to go get her, but he can't get the words out in time. Their escape from the crumbling mountain tunnels, like full of horrors, is really giving flashes of like fever dream Indiana Jones with Yuvek in the driver's seat, complete with a fade to black race against full-blown collapse at the end, which I just thought was really, really fucking fun.
Pretty cool.
Very, very, very cinematic.
Yeah, I was into this.
I had a super good time. Yeah,
me too. Part 5. I'm not even at chapter 1 acceptance.
Yes.
There's only one chapter.
I know. I do like that Christopher Paolini took the time to number it. It's the only one.
We end the story with one last chapter. And I can't believe it's over. Oh my God!
Murtagh!
Murtagh wakes up warm and comfy.
Oh, good.
Obviously healed as his breathing is painless and smooth.
Good.
Then a dark, smooth hand reaches out to touch his chest, his hard and muscly chest.
That's a different kind of book, Dane.
His dewy skin.
No, Dane. Lock it up, Dane.
Nasawada tells him to stay and rest. What?
It's Naswada.
Naswada.
Hi, Queen President.
Turns out Murtagh is in Illyria.
Amazing.
In a nice, comfy bed in the Citadel, being watched over by Elaine and Thorn, whose head is poking in from a room he fits in. Which is surprising to me.
Yeah.
Guards outside protect the room, and the emo boys finally chat.
Yes.
It's very nice. Thorn seems to have gotten past his trauma a bit,
Okay.
even sharing his true name and how he is fundamentally changed and no longer full of fear.
Good.
They cry, they hug each other, and then Murtagh tells Thorn his true name, proving he himself is free of anger and pain.
Free of anger? That
There's no
seems
way.
like, who even is Murtagh?
If he doesn't have his rage.
What does he have?
What does he
you know
have?
what I mean?
They lay against each other, feeling cool with each other on a level we haven't really seen so far in the story. And at the beginning of the season, we talked a lot about how they seemed less close or just very different from Eragon and Saphira.
Yeah.
And it seems here that maybe they are on their way to having a more harmonious bond now that they have like done some healing.
Boys.
Yeah. Elaine comes back with some food and catches Murtagh up on a little fade to black.
Yes.
She explains that Yuvek, the best bra, climbed down from Thorn to scoop her in the cave. After they escaped the cave, Yuvek left them at Nalgograth to help his people. He did, however, leave a rough rope tied knots for Murtagh that means brother, and told Elaine that the three of them are welcome at his fire anytime. They've been in Illyria for 4 days.
I already miss Uvek.
I know, Uvek's dope. I like that he gave him like a cool keychain,
too. And we know Murtagh loves a souvenir.
Yeah, totally. He's definitely going to be on his backpack later.
Yes.
There's a moment where Murtagh reflects on family and how it can be made up of people that aren't your blood. And I like this bit a lot.
Yeah.
It's the type of thinking Murtagh needs if he is going to have a fuller and less isolated life.
Yeah.
It's also true in my experience. Over the last decade, the people who have really been there for me through thick and thin and who have gone out of their way to spend time with me have been my close friends.
Yeah.
Even doing this with you, Jax, was a leap, and you and Ben are much more like family to Dylan and me than some of my actual family.
Absolutely,
yeah,
dude.
This is what Murtagh needs. You
Yeah.
need some. It's another way we're the same, me and Murtagh. You need someone to keep him in line.
Am I your blood brother?
Are you Uvek?
I asked before. I think I'm your Uvek.
I think you're my Uvek, dude. Murtagh also gives Elaine big props for being courageous enough to leave her religion and risk her life for him.
Yeah.
And I think that's an understatement, to be honest. Without her, Murtagh and Thorn would have been lost forever, and Uvek would have for sure died.
Yes.
Elaine shares her fear that Aslugur is waking and that Dramar are not going to be deterred by this.
Yeah.
And I have to say, it seemed like Aslugur was waking when we last left those caves.
It does track.
And Michelle did say that she was only one of many speakers, so I think Elaine is right.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Then everything stops as Nasa Wada shows up.
Hell yeah.
High Queen President is back, Jax.
I miss her.
She's still looking hot, wearing the finest clothing, and of course, still showing off those sweet scars on her forearms. And still rocking that sick crown all the races joined in making. Basically, she's still badass. She's keeping it tight.
Yes.
Murtagh,
I love to hear that. She is famously hot.
Yeah, famously hot. Murtagh quickly gets up to bow, and then everyone is sent away so they can be alone. Bow, chicka, bow, wow.
Dane, that's a different kind of book.
Sorry, everybody. Everyone wanted it. We were all thinking it.
So true.
We were all hoping for it.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. We thought, the tone of this book is more mature.
It is more mature.
Not that much more mature.
How more mature?
Not this much, sadly.
Nah, they get chatting. Unfortunately for all the fans shipping them, they don't just get to boning. Anyway, Duvringer Gada apparently had to work very hard to keep Murtagh alive.
Yes.
That's how fucked up he was.
Yep.
And I was going to be super confused for a second about how he even made it there, since last we saw him, he was going to drown in his own blood.
Uh-huh.
Our boy Uvek made sure he was good for transport, which is another reason to love the dude. I also love that Murtagh thinks he's going to have to use the same name of names to make sure there's no enchantments on him after Duvringer Gada had him for so long.
Yes.
I guess Murtagh doesn't like the Magic Gestapo either.
No, and I do like that after all of this, maybe his anger is gone, but his cynicism isn't.
No. Perfect. That's what that tells Murtagh, that no one knows they are in the keep.
Okay.
Which I don't understand, since Thorn is literally outside of it. But it turns out Thorn was clever and contacted Nasa Wada before they showed up.
Okay.
And then she covered his arrival.
Gotcha.
And the people who do know are a small group of her servants, and all of them have sworn magical oaths to her.
No.
To not tell anyone else.
She wouldn't make somebody do that, Dane. That's some Galbatoric shit.
First, we learn the letter Murtagh sent only arrived 2 days before Murtagh himself came. And Murtagh explains basically the whole story that we have read in this book in great detail.
Amazing.
So
Are you going to tell it again?
So, chapter 1. No. Basically, it's that Carabel letter just arrived, and he basically explains everything from that point on.
Gotcha.
At this point, he stops and brings up something I talked about when we were doing Inheritance. He basically says that Nasa Wada should hate him for torturing her.
Yes.
And she says at first, she did.
Yeah.
But later she realized it wasn't his choice. And just another reason I was right. Isn't it fun doing this?
It is really fun, Dane.
Yeah, we're all having fun.
Another reason I think I was right is that Naswada is the best of us. She really is a superhuman person with a capacity for forgiveness unseen anywhere else ever, ever, ever.
Yes. Murtagh continues revealing that he broke and Murtagh continues.
Yeah.
He breaks and weeps in her arms.
Yes.
When he gets to the time he and Thorn massacred villagers.
Ooh, yeah.
He continues to the very end, eventually getting out of bed and pacing back and forth. Mm-hmm. Probably shirtless. Nasa Wada, ever the competent maneuverer, asks about Aslugur and the Dramar and if he killed Aslugur. And Murtagh explains he doesn't think he did, but that the dragons might know more.
You think?
You think,
Not
bud?
them.
He wants to talk to Eragon and the Eldenari, which better than late than never, I guess.
Yeah.
But Nasawada tells him he doesn't have to leave, but can stay and talk through a mirror to Eragon. She tells Murtagh that before he left, Eragon gave all the queens and kings of the land one so they could reach him quickly if they ever needed him for anything. And can I just say, Murtagh's response bothered me here, and I think I'm defensive of our bean boy, Jax.
Of course you are.
Murtagh says, and I'm quoting, of course he did. He's getting clever, that one. And it bothers me for several reasons here, okay? I think it's because it assumes some sense of understanding and knowledge of Eragon. And I feel like by the time Eragon and Murtagh met at the end, Eragon is so different that Murtagh's presumptions that he knows him is fucking off.
Yes.
And I feel like this is just more of the pride and vanity we've been seeing. I don't know. What does that make sense?
So you think just this one throwaway comment is like full proof that Murtagh has backslid pretty far on this like journey of self-discovery?
I think this is a core tenet of his personality.
Yeah.
Is pride. I just don't think.
Well, do you think it's still bad enough to drive him to repeat a mistake like he made at Nul Gorgoth? Or do you think he's maybe healed a bit, but maybe not healed quite through? Maybe it's just Eragon related that he can't quite get past, or like.
I think he's still going to make mistakes because of his pride. I don't
Yeah.
think they're going to be as huge as what happened at Nulgorth. I think there's a limit, but I also think with Eragon there's going to be a blind spot.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think Christopher Paolini said too, like in writing this character, he's like, yeah, I had to have some bad shit happen to Murtagh, or I had to have him still making bad choices.
Yeah.
It would be too weird if like the guy we saw really fucking around at the end of Inheritance just came back and was like, I'm actually a good guy now.
I figured it
like
out.
It would not have tracked at all.
Yeah, and I think he's always going to think he has Eragon's number.
I think you're
what I mean?
right. It's like there's a piece of this that even moving forward in this universe, we're still going to expect a certain measure of this out of Murtagh, you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to go away.
Yeah. I like that.
They end up hanging out, though, looking out the window as the sun sets as the newly rebuilt capital,
That's
free of the
nice.
war Murtagh had last fled from, and having a nice companionable silence.
That's nice.
Murtagh thinks they should find all the places where the smoke is, starting at El Haram, when he says that Nasawada shares a rhyme about the place.
Yeah.
In El Haram, there lived a man with yellow eyes. To me, he said, beware the whispers, for they whisper lies. Do not wrestle with the demons of the dark, else upon your mind they'll place a mark. Do not listen to the shadows of the deep, else they haunt you even when you sleep.
Ooh.
This was the poem we heard her say in Inheritance when she was protecting her mind from Gal.
Oh, yeah.
So good on you, Pauline. This seems like there's some planning. There's some pre-planning here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, the thing with Umaroth is like,
Yeah.
okay, that's a good way to kick off a story.
Exactly.
And we knew that was a clear seed here. But getting some of these other drops from before, like I think we talked about in another episode, the brimstone scent that's kind of sprinkled throughout the first 4 books. I'm like, okay, Chris.
Pretty cool.
Let's go.
Murtagh wants to root out all the Dramar and all the children they buy and steal,
Yes.
which of course he does.
Yes.
Basically, Murtagh starts talking like he's about to continue his hunt to its end, and I'm all for it, actually.
Yeah.
He also wants to go protect the werecats and go back to Gilead and fix that whole mess with the captain of the guard and whatnot.
Okay.
And no, Nasawada doesn't like being boss around and tells him she hasn't give him leave to do anything.
Hilarious.
Right in that moment, Elaine comes in with all of his things, including even the goblet he picked up.
Oh, yeah.
Which is good for you, Elaine. That's-
Yeah, who rescued that?
I just
Actually,
imagine
he put it in his like fanny pack, right? When he got Zarok out of
I think so.
Michelle's,
I think that was with
little
all of his stuff.
lockbox.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But it is funny if Elaine got it. It's just kind of
She's
funny.
just been like hanging on to it for a minute.
Elaine is then offered a job as a servant to Nasawada's royal maids if she will be loyal to Nasawada as her rightful queen, which I felt weird about, especially timing-wise. Plus, Elaine still calls him, like, Murtagh King Killer as she leaves, which, big whoopsie. Murtagh seems happy, though, that Elaine got a job and isn't homeless and penniless.
Yeah.
He reflects that Nasawada was clever in getting the best intel on the Dramar to be very close. So, basically, Elaine knows the most, so it's good she kept her close.
I think so.
I think so, too.
That's
it's like
very Naswada to me.
Nasawada working her magic.
Yeah.
Nasawada brings up the title of King Killer and is pretty straightforward with Murtagh when he says he never aspired to such a title. She says he did help kill Galbatorix and went out of his way to kill King Hrothgar. Then Nasawada says something that, for the first time in show history, proves one of my crazy string wall theories was right.
For the first time ever, I would like to say I told you so.
Nasawada explains that Hrothgar was basically like an uncle to her, that she knew him all her life, and that she cared for him very much. Boom!
Oh my God.
This is what I mean. Murtagh did some horrible shit, and I was right.
Wow.
Twice in one ep, too. Nasawada does blame Murtagh for Hrothgar's murder, but she says she understands his anger, and I was a little lost there. I'm not going to lie. That seems like a lot of understanding, like preternatural understanding. Like, that stretched a little bit of the credulity for me.
I guess I feel like if you could move past the torture, which we already established, then this is small potatoes compared to that.
Well, that's what it is to me. It's like, I mean, at that point, there's nothing he could have done at all to like, bother her.
I don't think so. Not in the state he was in. I think maybe having been tortured herself gives her a little like insight into what that rage and anger is. And she like does not agree or think it's okay he did this, but she can understand what that feeling is because she has been there, you know?
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, Murtagh decides he will carry the Doth Dart. He also saves somehow.
Yes.
Which is badass.
That I feel like every time that Doth Dart pops up, I'm like, what is that? I wasn't expecting that.
Perfect for a lone wolf rider who is unlikely to join with Eragon.
Yeah, that seems like that'd be tough.
A lance to kill dragons.
Yeah, that's
it's fucking cool.
Interesting choice.
They cover a lot of ground here in this chapter, discussing the persons in her court who was at with the Dreamers.
Yes.
But Thorn and Murtagh can't remember the person's face. They discuss the risks of the Dramar, and finally Nasawada asks Murtagh to stay with her.
Yeah.
It's weird to me. I guess I just don't get them.
Yeah.
You know, Nasawada touches his chest, his chiseled, strong chest, and tells him that he can be with her publicly.
Ooh.
And that she will vouch for him to the entire empire. Mm-hmm. In perfect Murtagh fashion, he asks if she's told people he helped kill Gal.
Yeah.
And Nasawada tells him that she's been clear he was not an enemy, but he is going to have to suck it up if he doesn't want to hide in the shadows.
I like that she is just honest about that shit. She's like, no, I said what I said.
Yeah, I said what I said. I like that no one sees it like Murtagh. They're like, yeah, I mean, yes, you did help, but come on, dude. Yeah. She adds that she's also asking for, like, non-professional reasons. You know what I mean?
I mean, the shippers get what the shippers want at the end of the day.
That's
and
true.
Like you said, people don't generally hate this ship, except for you.
Except for me. I'm the only one. Murtagh tells her that he won't be part of the Gestapo or vow to her crown. And she says, I know.
That's fine.
Then they stare at each other. And finally, he decides to accept who he is. Have a little cry. And then, with a feeling that danger is ahead of him, Murtagh feels a sense of rebirth and decides to stay.
Whoa.
With Nasawada.
Whoa.
Do you think he stays the night?
Yeah, Dane.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Fade to black.
This is like a different kind of fade to black.
Yeah.
This isn't like a pass out fade to black. 100%.
Yeah.
The feeling that danger is ahead of him is so ominous, but
I mean,
you know, the end is the
tumble with
end.
Nasawada. There's a bit of danger there. The things that woman knows.
Strong agree.
Strong, independent woman.
She would absolutely have her way with Murtagh.
Yeah.
I do not think.
She's going to eat him alive.
Yes, he definitely seems, I mean, he's a dandy. We know this.
Yes.
He seems like he's been around the block a time or two, but like she's about to teach him some stuff.
Oh, yeah. She's like, here's some things he didn't learn in the Empire. You know what I mean?
100%. Things are important, Dane. Murtagh killed a boogeyman. He made a friend, and he finally faced someone from his past.
Yes.
This is big stuff. He's growing.
Yeah.
But before we can speculate just wildly on what this first book might be setting up for the new era of the World of Eragon, I do want to look back at the ride we've been on with our emo anti-hero in this book.
It's time for analysis.
So first of all, in a classic analysis move, I want to talk about the clear theme of this book, which is acceptance. We know that Christopher Paolini is a sword guy, Dane, and you don't have to look any further than Ithring to see the theme of Murtagh's journey here is one of freeing himself from his past or getting to a place of acceptance.
Yes.
I know it's come up before, but this book is fundamentally a character study, and I think that's such a good vehicle to explore a topic like acceptance. The conflict of this story all centers around Murtagh confronting his past without actually working through it and resolving it. So it makes sense. The earlier conflicts in this story all center around Murtagh confronting his past without actually working through and resolving it. So it makes sense that with acceptance comes his actual character growth, his actual success in slaying the big bad, and resolution of his big picture problem of facing his reputation and ending his isolation. And I want to wrap things up in this book pretty close actually to where we started in the first episode's analysis, which is comparing our two bros from different foes. It's like my favorite joke you've ever made.
Oh, thank you.
I'll call it out until the end of time.
I'll take it.
So in the first analysis this season, we talked broadly about the differences in writing style between this book and Eragon's. And now I want to bring up some like parallel plot points actually and motifs I noticed that mirror Eragon's journey, like as Murtagh works through his identity crisis, basically. So from the goofy to the climactic, like these beats I thought were all over this story, from being sent on a side quest by a cat to having prophetic dreams to their father figures like dying while taking a shot meant for them to channeling their identities through a sword. Like, do you feel like you noticed any others? I'm thinking of a couple we talked about kind of this episode and last too.
You know, it's funny. I did not. You were on this the whole time. I so plugged in to Murtagh's journey. I really never.
That tracks.
Yeah, I was so in it.
I mean, like making friends with Urgles or like being a figure amongst the Urgles.
Yeah,
and
I guess
like,
I was going to say the Yuvik stuff seemed very similar to like becoming a brother with Yuvik, and Eragon is a brother of the dwarfs.
Yeah.
You know, he was adopted.
Definitely being adopted by a different race. But even like Murtagh's journey from like casual racism to actual respect of Yuvik really mirrors what Eragon went through with Nargashbra.
Yes.
And I just think there's a lot of like...
And then like even like in the Durza fight, like he wins against Durza only after he's slashed through the back.
Yeah.
And Murtagh kills Bashel only after he's been stabbed through the lung.
Stabbed in the lung. Also, crystals falling from the sky to take out the boogie. I mean, it's a lot of like little things. If you're really looking for them, you can kind of pull them out of anywhere in the story.
Murtagh had to fight all those alien monsters, and Eragon had to deal with those disgusting twins.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
so
exactly the same.
True. Exactly the same. I do feel like Eragon had to do like the Razak.
Oh, yeah, there
Which
you go.
are nightmare
creatures. I was making a joke.
I know, but actually, I do think it's interesting that like kind of wherever you turn, there's at least a tenuous link.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny. People ask Christopher Paolini about this in interviews, and he straight up said like most of this was not intentional. He did not do this on purpose.
Nice.
But he did notice it as he was editing, and like I think drew out some of the connections a little bit more during that process, just because he thought it was kind of a perfect twist of fate, I think. And whether these things were intentional or not, I think it's really fun to think about Murtagh as this perfect foil for Eragon. Like he's also struggling to really understand his identity, his values, his place in the world. And in the course of this book, I almost started looking at him as like a photo negative of his half brother in a lot of ways. Like Murtagh came from wealth and comfort, scraped by in the wilderness and on the fringes of society, and ultimately ended up committing to serving a society. And Eragon came from the Rutabagas, ascended to power and leadership, and ultimately ended up in like a solitary place, but comfortable place, serving his own conscience. Like they kind of have these odd like
crossover moments.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's a lot of mirrors there that are like inverse, turned on their heads in a lot of ways, because I think, you know, they came from literally the same place. They came from the same mom, but were raised so differently and treated so differently by society. Like even when the same types of conflicts come at them, even the same types of creatures or horrors in this world, the same type of like magics befall them as like becoming riders, they deal with them in very, very different ways.
Well, they even ended up in kind of in a like completely different place too, because if Murtagh decides to stay with like Nasawada and defend the, you know, the human empire, then like he's choosing a side kind of, whereas Eragon chose the riders and the dragons and everyone.
Well, it's like
you know
Eragon kind of came from nowhere in a way, because Carvajal technically belonged to the Empire, but they talked all the time at the beginning how it was so remote. It basically didn't belong to the Empire.
Yes.
He came from nowhere. He ended up nowhere. And it's like Murtagh came from like
the Empire,
the center of imperial power, and like throughout his journey kind of sympathized with what it was to run a society.
Yeah,
and like,
even in that first book, we're like, ooh.
Yeah, when he didn't want to join the Varden, I mean, he kind of kept that as a through line a little bit, the same way Eragon kept the like man apart from the world through line throughout his journey as well.
Yeah, and it's going to put him in conflict again, obviously.
I think so, but I do think there's like seeds here, at least as like Murtagh is healing, maybe as we talked about, not quite from his Eragon related trauma, but like as he's healing on a larger level, I do think there's somewhere, I mean, just think about how he thought about Roran in this book, like he has kind of like a blood will out mentality. Like we're going to have to see each other and get right soon because blood is important to Murtagh. Yeah. So I do think there's potential at least to like get our sword bros back to being bros. I'm very optimistic,
I'm
Dane.
not as hopeful, but I hope you're right.
Yes. I just feel like at the end of this, we fundamentally have been given something very familiar with very different trappings. Like this book is not necessarily coming of age, but it isn't too far afield from that either, following a character on a journey of self-discovery. Yeah. So I think that's what I have deep down.
Oh, well, that leads us
to analyze this book and its themes.
That leads us to a deep dive. So for this week's deep dive, I wanted to bust out my insane red string wall and speculate wildly on what's going to happen in the future of the World of Eragon books.
Amazing.
We've confirmed that the next story and book are set 10 years after the events of Murtagh, building the Dreamer conflict for the next series, right, Jax?
Yeah, I think Christopher Paolini has said fairly often that the time jump to the next phase of stories should be like between 10 and weirdly 16 years. That's the range he gave. And somehow in the course of writing this season, like I really managed to galaxy brain out on a whole host of Christopher Paolini's interviews. There is a kind soul in the Eragon subreddit who compiled a super comprehensive, like, compilation of interviews that Paolini did. Yes. So thank you, Reddit user. Sindri bless the internet. I will link that, but it's like basically all the interviews he did doing press for Murtagh. So it's like the most recent comments he has on this series, all kind of in one place. So he has said that he wants to get back to Eragon's point of view, that those books will involve the next generation of dragon riders, which I'm fucking pumped for. And he said that like, as he started plotting out that story, he realized like there was just too much exposition that happened in this world in the meantime that he was going to have to do through like flashbacks. Basically, that next book was going to be really fucking boring, telling like giving us some of the details context of the dreamers. Yes, if that's going to be the main like conflict. So he said what he decided to do, he did always want to like write a book centering on Murtagh, tell more of Murtagh's story that we got bits of in the original Inheritance cycle. And then he's also said in a few of those interviews that he might want to like give the rest of this exposition or finish setting up the next like Eragon point of view with a book of short stories, volume 2. So where Fork, Witch, and Worm is Tales from Alagasia, volume 1. He's planning, I think, to do a volume 2 of those stories. I think he said that that should include like the story, which I'm stoked for because this is like a huge like nagging loose end for me, but he's going to tell the story that involves Nagling, Oramis's sword that got dropped. So we're going to find out, hopefully, he's promised where like that comes back up in one of these short stories, and it's going to give us a little more context to time jump a little further and see what Eragon has been up to.
Dope. And with that in mind, here's my honest guess for the next book's characters, possibly general plot and some random tidbits. Based purely on conjecture, overconfidence, and
Hell
vibes.
Yeah, brother.
First, some things it won't be. I know some fans really want it, and Paolini has mentioned a book with Angela as the main character in the past before, but as I've said before this season, I absolutely doubt that will ever happen. I think her being an unexplained mystery is what keeps her so interesting. Knowing more about her could change how people feel about Angela. It might even change actually the larger worlds and mythos Paolini is creating in both the Fractalverse and the World of Eragon.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I mean, you know, from what I said in the Angela deep dive, like I also think this is pretty unlikely. If he finds her difficult to write, it's just hard to imagine he'd want to put himself through that unless, like you said in that episode, he wants to make her a cornerstone of this fight against the Dreamers. I still don't I don't see it being full Angela backstory.
Yeah, I still don't think that would be full Angela. Yeah, which leads to another thing I don't think it is, but that some fans want, which is a book with Arya as the main character. And Paolini has explicitly said she will feature in the future of the story and has mentioned wanting to write in the future from her point of view.
Yes.
And while he might do that, I think it will be in little spurts. Writing the internal thoughts of an elf, especially Arya, is going to be challenging. Paolini has built up their superiority, wisdom, alien-like vibes so much in the original 4 books.
Yeah.
And add to it the fact that Arya is a complex character, from the music in her mind to her being over 100 years old to her ancient elven wisdom and magical mastery. All of this makes her a tough character for a point of view, and I think it could work alongside other POVs in a book, but an entire book from Arya's perspective might be too much, and I think it's very unlikely.
Yes, it's kind of going to adopt your fix from the original Inheritance Cycle bonus episode, which is like include Arya POV.
Exactly.
Not solely Arya POV, but pepper
them in, yeah. So what's most likely, I think, is something straddling the middle ground, with the POVs probably being spread among the main players, like Arya, Murtagh, Eragon, Nasawada, with the addition, I bet, of a new POV character, likely a writer. I predict the new writer, and now that you said the 16-year gap, I bet the new writer was born after the fall of Galbatorix and is 16 or something like that. I predict the new writer will start the story, potentially arriving at Mount Ongor to be trained by Eragon, or maybe on a journey with Arya in the Elven lands, heading to Eragon.
Yeah.
I also think this new POV character will be female. From what I've seen in the YA market over the last few years, female readers kind of dominate, so it makes sense. It's also likely that it will probably be either half of the POV chapters in the book, or at the very least, I think most of the POV chapters. Yeah. Additionally, I think this new POV character could be the first Dwarf or Urgal writer, likely an Urgal, to subvert what we know of Urgal culture and add more conflict. Plus, we know Paolini loves to write the Urgals.
Yes, we know he loves the dwarves. I think he said, it's funny, we joke about how much he clearly loves his elves, but also he says in interviews, like, I want to hang out with the dwarves.
Yeah, the dwarves are the best.
So, yes, we know he loves them. We know he loves to write the Urgals. I think to add to this, he has also said in interviews that Murtagh was this kind of departure tonally from the YA that was the original Inheritance Cycle, because the readers are more grown up. But with the next kind of phase of stories, he does want to stick back with YA novels. Yeah. So I think it makes a lot of sense if that writer is, like you said, about 16. Yeah. That'd be a really solid...
It would make sense.
Yeah, that's his pocket, dog.
Finally, I think this book will center around the Dreamer conflict, obviously, that Murtagh and Nasawada have been dealing with privately. I think they're going to have like their own private little war they're doing that we learn about.
Okay.
They'll have to reach out to Eragon for help, or something bad will have happened that forces them to have to get Eragon involved.
Yeah.
And then we'll find out Arya, too, has been fighting this conflict, like, secretly or unknowingly, and will eventually have to join forces as well.
Okay.
I think this young 16-year-old Urgal writer will have her first-hand knowledge of the Dreamer impact, making her a vital member of the war, despite her lack of training.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my prediction. The Dreamers, the tried and true character POVs, a neo POV, and an infusion of a fresh cache of characters, all fighting various secret plots and attacks from the Dreamers for the last decade, with the exception of Eragon, who will not know anything about this new enemy. Like, when it comes up, you'll have to ask the dragons. Any predictions for the next book before we start riffing on changes and happenings in the world of Eragon 10 years down the line, Jax?
I don't know. You make a really convincing case. I feel like...
That's the overconfidence.
Yes. You've really sold me on that. I do think, like... It seems hard to believe that Eragon wouldn't have heard of it at all at this point, unless, like, you think Nasawada is really going to try to sway Murtagh not to talk to him.
Well, I think we got hints of that. I think we got hints of the way people feel about, so at the end of the original Inheritance Cycle, Eragon doesn't like talking to people because everyone talks to him as if he's the leader of the writers and like a saint or like a god or something.
Yes.
And we saw from Carabelle that she didn't even want to tell Nasawada because she didn't have enough information, let alone Eragon or Arya. And I kind of got the vibe that we do have some hints that people aren't going to bother Eragon unless they like really need help.
Yes.
And I think Nasawada even less so, because she knows how he feels.
Up to some shit.
Yeah, and she knows how he feels about like Duvrangagada. She probably has an idea of how he would feel about Murtagh just being there. You know what I mean? And let's be honest, she's not going to tell him, like, unless it is like, I think it wouldn't surprise me. How about we put it this way? It wouldn't surprise me if she lied to him.
Yes, I don't think that would surprise me either. Although I think the magical threat is such, and I think Murtagh has been so thoroughly taught the lesson that this is above his pay grade, that it does seem it would strain credulity to me if they didn't tell him, just because of how dangerous this threat is.
Well,
then
maybe it'll be something more like they'll ask him about it, and that'll kind of be it. And once Eragon belies his ignorance...
Yeah, or the dragons don't really know about it, or they just have so much more trouble rooting out this threat than they thought would be the case.
Yeah.
Or we pop into the new book in the middle of a full-blown new war.
Which would be wild.
That would be wild. I don't think that's going to happen. But no, I think I'm pretty sold on this. I don't know how it'll be a secret to Eragon up until the new book, but I do kind of think that makes the most sense for the story, that's how that would work.
I think he's just gonna have to, by nature of like, or else he's just gonna come out and fix it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I think there's going to be some reason that it's not told. And you know, as far as the Murtagh thing goes, I can see him just being like, well, I was alone and I asked Eragon, but, you know, he didn't really know. So now I have all these people and Duvrengargarda and the, you know, resources of Nasawada, and I'll figure it out myself.
Do you think Murtagh's going to teach Duvrengargarda the name of names if they're his magical, like, henchmen?
I really hope not.
I really hope not. Except for Triana, she deserves to know. That's my girl.
Well, which leads to our thoughts on what might happen over the coming years in the world of Eragon. Duvrengargarda. Let's start there with Triana.
Yes.
Yeah, what do you think?
I mean, I think Triana's running a tight ship, obviously. She can do no wrong.
We know they're dreamers in Duvrengargarda.
Oh, shit, that's right. So I do think that's going to maybe be the hinge of like the fuckery, or like why it becomes so difficult to root out the dreamers over time. Like, I think them being entrenched in this like magical seat of power in the Empire and like having such an inside track on Naswada's dealings is just going to make them nearly impossible to actually root out, even over the course of 10 years.
I mean, I think despite even the dreamers, I think Duvrengargarda is going to be a huge problem.
Yes.
I think this is the problem waiting to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like threefold, right? I mean, one, you've traded a whole bunch of people in more magic. You condensed all the information and then spread it amongst all these people.
Yeah.
And much like the Black Hand, you just have more dangerous people, right? Two, I think whenever you enslave people, they don't like that, you know? So I think there's going to be a good bunch of people, even if they're not dreamers, working against Nasawada or trying to break free from their bonds.
Okay.
And then three, I just think that like the idea is such that like... people are going to, even if you're not in Duvrengargarda, even if you don't even know anybody in Duvrengargarda, I think this is one of those things that would drive people.
It definitely seems a little fashy.
It's a little
fashy.
Yeah.
And I think it makes it easy for like your everyday citizen to be like, is our empire evil?
Are we the bad guys? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've been thinking a lot. I would like wild speculation on what is Aslaugar. Like, what is your kind of headcanon for...
You know,
big old dragon dude.
I just picture like a kaiju, like a giant, like a giant creature. What, like just enormous, like just truly unthinkably large. Is the only thing that's really in my head. I do think he's probably the serpent style dragon. Is the vibe I'm getting. But other than that, I really don't have anything.
I think online people have speculated. Obviously, Aslaugar is underneath the Spine mountain range because that's where we're setting this whole book up in the north.
Yeah.
But people have speculated online as well that there are some like hints. I would have to go back and like study up on some of the Reddit fan theories to know exactly where in the original inheritance cycle. But people seem to think there are hints that the Bior Mountains as well are raised as like the giant back of even more giant dragon than the Spine, which like huge if true. Whoopsie. That'd be scary. So I could see like even if maybe if there's a new era of books, multiple books, maybe one's gonna tackle Aslaugar, but maybe there's something else.
Maybe there's more
under there.
Yeah.
I think my unified theory of the head dreamer is that this is some sort of proto dragon, like missing evolutionary link between like the Needwall, the Fangher, and the dragons. And so when Bashel is talking about like the betrayers and like the weak blood, that seems to me to have something to do with the dragons like forming the dragon pact and the dragon bond and like betraying the ancient blood kind of a vibe.
Yes.
And I really think because of everything we know about wild magic at this point, after seeing all the wordless magic in this book, I'm almost thinking of wild magic and wordless magic as a separate magic system from the ancient language. I mean, I know it's not necessarily, but I guess I'm thinking like maybe the gray folk warped magic enough with the ancient language that they're kind of operating on a different
system
baseline, because I do think that Oslaughter's whole thing is this wild magic, and in such an ancient like earth core deep sense that he's able to enact all these like horrors upon the world. I think there's a lot here that suggests it's like definitely gray folk related, definitely pre-elves, pre-dwarves, pre-human. Like,
I'd be interested to see that. I like the Nerdwall proto dragon stuff. I don't know about the new dragon the magic thing, but only because I just don't know what that would be.
Yeah,
and I think
guess it just
a lot
seems
of this can
different
be explained
enough now that I'm like,
well, it's just like dragon magic to me.
Yeah.
It seems like it's explainable with like it's just an immense power. So with an immense power, you can do anything. But I'd be really interested.
But
if
in
it
a
is
way
new
that
magic
can be
system.
controlled.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm interested in seeing what that would be like. You might very well be right. I just
Like it draws on the same energy, but it has different rules because of how
that would be really
you
cool.
have to control it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I would like him to get away. I guess that's the thing. My thing is not that is not a great thought. I just would like him to get away from. If he's going to start changing magic, I would like him to get away from the magic system completely and create another one. And I always think of like Brandon Sanderson and like Allomancy.
Yeah,
and then the other magic that's in there that right now I'm blanking on. They're just separate. I mean, they work in conjunction. They can mess with each other. Spoilers, everybody. But like, I do. That makes sense because you're dealing with two separate things, kind of.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's an interesting thought. I never thought about that. You convinced me on the proto dragon thing. I agree. I can now not think of anything other than that. So
your girl got an anthropology degree. She likes evolution, Dane.
Well, who was the guy Murtagh knew but couldn't place?
You know
in this
what?
book?
I truly, maybe I'm fucking stupid, but I have no ideas for this. I just am like kind of at a loss. I have no clue.
It's Triana.
Hey.
I think it's Triana.
Hey.
I think the fact that it's a man
you shut
is
your
a throwing us off.
dirty mouth. Yeah. She would never. Listen, she's up to her own agenda.
We knew she was a slattern from the moment we met her.
I didn't. I caped for her. I love her.
I love her too.
Savage.
But I think well, here's the thing. The only reason I say that is we don't know this person what he looks like, but we know it's a man.
Yeah.
How? Why? I don't understand. I don't know how that works.
Do you think it's King Orin?
Ooh. That would be great. That was my second guess.
Really?
King Orin, yeah. Because it would make sense. He's going to be, I mean, regardless of what happens in the future, King Orin is going to be a dreamer confirmed, right?
You think?
Dude, there's no
He's
way.
such a dick.
He fucking hates Nasawada.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's just no way. All right, the truth about Galbi.
Okay. I think here I am kind of with Murtagh. I do genuinely believe, I think it kind of tracks, given what we know Umaroth told Murtagh about staying away from all of these places. I think it tracks what Bashel said, that the ancient writers were afraid of the dreamers. And I think we know that they were a little like fucking wily. They were doing some weird shit that they didn't ever want to tell people about. I think it tracks that they sent Galbatorix up to like do some recon on this group. That's where he lost his dragon. Like, I'm mostly buying that.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of aligning with Murtagh afterwards that Gal would have like seen an opportunity for power, taken that power. Maybe if we do know he met Durza in this time. So I think it would have to be that Durza was somewhere around Nal Gorgoth, if not directly involved with the Dreamers, if that like strains credulity.
Yeah.
Then he was somewhere around. Gal like took his chance at power, made some like false oaths basically to Bashel.
Yeah.
And then went out to do his genocide and take his power, and then thought to double cross them and did fail at that, obviously.
Interesting.
And sent Saerlith out to do the double cross at the end of the day.
Yeah, see, for me, Christopher Paolini has said in AMAs that Eragon with the Eldenari and Arya could just have destroyed Bashel and all the Dreamers in like a blink.
Yeah.
And I do think, knowing that and knowing kind of what we know about the Dragon Riders and Elves, I think we're missing information, because he's also said that like we shouldn't trust what Bashel told us about history. Chris also said that.
Yeah.
So if Bashel's a liar, which I seemed obvious, but if Bashel's a liar and some of it's true,
yeah,
and we know that Eragon, with essentially the power of Galbatorix now, could easily just fuck all this shit up.
Yeah.
It leads me to believe that there is some piece of information we just don't have. And I think you're probably right when you think there's a proto-dragon and there's something to do with the dragon bond stuff.
Yeah.
I bet this is a Dragon Rider thing where like they didn't fuck with the Dreamers or whatever this Asgore thing is out of something they couldn't do that the dragons didn't want them to do. Not that like the writers themselves couldn't, but that the dragons had made a deal or something and were like, we're not going to continue our shame or whatever the thing that they want revenge. Because Michelle talks a lot about revenge.
Yes.
I bet you there's some moral reason they did not squash the Dreamers and that they left them to their devices, keeping them kind of low and hidden.
Yeah.
Is my vibe.
Kept
and that,
them like under a boot heel.
Yeah, and I think Gal used them. I think Gal got healed up and got in contact. Like the Forsworn could hide here, and all of that makes sense to me. But I think the moment he left, he was like, they're
Fuck
nothing.
'em.
And he sent troops there, I think probably knowing it wouldn't work, but like maybe like overwhelming numbers will destroy them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe just trying to like shake them from their foundations. Like Gal seems like the type of guy, we know from the original Inheritance cycle, he's never going out himself with his Eldenari to do shit.
No
so
reason.
I could see him sending out somebody like Serelith to just like thinking that, you know, if he's got a lifetime of rule ahead of him, maybe every 150 years he goes and like kills half of them and calls it a day. I definitely could see that. I am thinking, though, like Eragon does have a little more power than Galbatorix, at least for most of the time that he was in charge, because he only found the name of names towards the end of his reign.
Yes.
So that maybe is a little complicating factor where it might even up the power level just a little bit between him and the Dreamers. What I was just thinking about, though, for the first time, do you think that it was, I know he said that like Durza and some of his shade magic, that's kind of the understanding we got from the first series, that's how he hatched Shuriken and like perverted the dragon bond. Do you think this perverse dragon bond is something like Bashel and Aslogar promised to get, like, we can get you another dragon, basically, and it's some of this like fucked up drama bond magic that bound,
I think potentially
Shuriken to Gal.
I also, you just said something that made me think of it. I think also what Gal was doing with the name of name, I think yes to your question, but I also think that you made me think of something else, which is he was doing the name of names. He didn't go after the dwarfs and elves because he wanted to conquer Alagasia to go kill the Dreamers. Because like I think like
to root them out once and for all.
Because I don't think that like that it's one of those things where like it, you know, the followers are the problem.
No.
I think it's going to be whatever Aslogar is.
I think so, too.
I don't think it is an issue with the cults. I don't think Galbatorix had a problem with that. And Galbatorix had a full... he was, like, hardcore dictator.
Yes.
All of his people were sworn to him.
Yeah.
So, like, there's no, like, fear. Your inner circle is Dreamers. They're all sworn to you.
Yes, and it does track, too, with Gal. It's like, maybe he could have like killed Aslogar and rooted out all of the Dreamers without the name of names, but that's a guy who wants to know before going in that like he's gonna come out on top.
The one thing I'll give to Gal, the one good thing,
exactly one thing, not one other,
is that he wants to make sure he can win.
Yeah,
right. It seems like.
I think so.
Anyway, well, also it got me thinking about something else. Not to mention, like there's a whole host of shit that we could talk about going on in Alagasia.
On and on, yes.
Yeah.
I do want to, before we wrap up, if we're doing wild fan theory, I have been thinking a lot about like the Dreamers and the archaicness of it all as it relates specifically to like the gray folk, because we know that they are the ones who tame that wild magic, and Angela, because you did already the Angela speculation. I think maybe it's really pertinent here that like Christopher Paolini has said Angela is maybe not a race we know of from Alagasia. And so I think there's something percolating under the surface a little bit that like maybe Angela or like VNRA that is talked about from To Sleep in a Sea of Stars is maybe some sort of gray folk or like proto-human or some sort of like time traveler, I think are the going.
I think time traveler is confirmed, right? Because of the Fractalverse. And I do think the gray folk is confirmed not, because that's an old, it's a really old fan theory that I think he's spoken to. And been like, no.
So like something pre-gray folk, something with time travel capabilities. People also seem to think that because the man from Yellow Eye, like the man with yellow eyes comes up from Naswada's poem, like either that person is a gray folk or that person is the same race as Angela. So those are two that I've just seen like punted about a little bit online that kind of appeal to me as fan theories. I'm
That's
like, I think
cool.
there's a little more just right at the end of this that kind of builds on your what the fuck is up with Angela?
Yeah.
Deep dive.
Yeah. And it's weird because, like, the library, right? She was stuck in the last books. Right?
Yes, that was very time travel
right?
for sure.
Well, I mean, there's also some other stuff going on in Algasia too. Like, we have the conflict between the Empire and the Urgal clans and the New Lands.
Yes.
I think that's going to be a thing. I'm sure we're going to have a Dwarven uprising due to the writer choice by King Ulrich.
You think the dwarves are gonna backstab your boy?
After we got that not weird, but after we got that political section with the clan vote.
You feel like we know too much about dwarven politics to have it wasted?
And just like how the dwarfs must feel.
Yes.
I do think there's going to be 100 and something years where they're like, there's going to be people who don't like it. Not to mention the clan who clearly is not going to like it. But Alswak, how do you...
Aswelden Rock Onuin?
Thank you. Yes,
LOL.
that's that one. Yeah.
That's burned in my memory.
Yes.
That was my chapter to do. It was called that, so I really had to learn it. I have also heard people think that entire clan is dreamers.
Yes, I saw that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I'm buying that for now. Without thinking really deeply about it, I'm sold. I'll claim it.
I think that we saw that on Reddit. Is that a guy? We saw that from a post on Reddit, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think you read it to me.
Yeah.
Maybe is
if
why
we can
I can't.
find it, I'll put it on the. I'll put it in the show notes.
We'll definitely be linking, like that compilation of Christopher Paolini interviews. There are some other like little things we've referenced that we've seen online that we'll go ahead and link in the show notes. So you guys can do your own digging and come up with your own fucking wild fan theories if somehow these aren't enough for you.
Yeah. I also think that like Roran and the Carvajallers are going to be pissing off Nasawada. I just feel like Roran's not going to like being under Empire rule. I have a feeling.
You know, I really think you're right about that. Although he does grudgingly respect Nasawada. So like maybe it's...
These are all just crazy thoughts. You know what I mean? I could be totally wrong. I also think Nasawada is going to be less popular with the dwarves and elves because of Murtagh. If Murtagh was really going to stay there, I think she's instantly going to be in conflict with them, even more so.
Her political situation is immediately more complicated. Absolutely.
Is that all we got for today?
I think... I joke about how I'm dumb, but I do think I'm out of ideas. I think you.
Well, here's the thing. I think we could keep
ran
going.
This little brain dry, Dane.
Well, then that wraps up our journey to the world of Eragon.
That's
for now.
Crazy.
It's wild, dude. But it shouldn't be the end of us engaging with the content, though.
Okay.
As we've mentioned, if and when the show is up and running on Disney Plus, we fully intend to do a season around it. We are thinking it'll be more of a watch and react type podcast, so a bit looser and most likely recorded remotely, so we can react in real time. So stay tuned for that. So there'll be updates on that as the show continues on.
Yes.
Which leaves what we'll be doing with the rest of the show from here on out. First, just let me say, we received a ton of emails, Instagram DMs with suggestions, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
I mean, you guys single-handedly built out like my TBR list for the next several months with how many good fantasy recs were on there that I had not read before, but one rose to the top of the heap, Dane.
Yeah, and it's not exactly fantasy, but it certainly isn't like leap, as evidenced by how much we both love it and how many fans of the world of Eragon seem to love it.
Yes.
So the next series we'll be diving into, drumroll please, is Red Rising.
Yes, I'm so pumped. While it's technically sci-fi, I think so much of the world building and themes feel of a piece with fantasy novels. I think that's why it got recommended so many times.
It was I think in all of them.
Yes, by you guys. And it helps, I think, at least when I think about it, because I'm not generally big into sci-fi, but like the tech in these books feels so advanced, it functions essentially like magic. So it's not hard for me at all to be like, well, that's magic. Plus, I think the characters, the writing, the story, I think we've both said as we've read these books together, like some of the best we've seen in years. Like we're really, really excited to dig into them. They're great books.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yes.
Which brings me to some personal big news. My wife and I are expecting a baby this winter.
Yes.
We're beyond excited to welcome another little baby into our family.
Yes.
I love being a dad.
Yes. Kevin gets it.
I love being a dad, and with one already great kid, we thought it'd be fun to, grow our proud house.
Yes.
but
Your lineage, Dane.
Yes, the Patterson clan.
Yes.
But between the arrival of a newborn and getting our heads around a new series for you all, we're trying to be a little flexible on the start date for our next series. So we're planning to start reading Red Rising around the time that this episode airs.
Yes.
So in short, we have big plans for the next phase of the pod in Red Rising.
Yeah.
But we can't set a firm date just yet.
Yeah.
So please keep checking our social feeds over the next couple weeks for updates and look out for our new episode kicking off the space opera very soon.
Yes, space opera. What a good way to put that.
Yeah. And finally, I do want to say thank you all for joining us on this incredible journey. It's been a blast revisiting my childhood favorite and the first book Jax and I bonded over as kids. This podcast has been more fun to make than I ever thought it would be. And those of you who've reached out to tell us how much you love it, it has just been great to read that. I'm glad we made something that resonated with people out there. And I really think of you all as just in a book club with us. Just more buds for the pod, which leads to you, bud. Thank you, Jax. It's been awesome hanging out with you. And it's been real fun.
This has been really fun. In some ways, this podcast has been... far be it from me to fucking age us, Dane.
Oh, no.
23 years in the making.
Oh, God.
That hurts, doesn't it?
It hurts the soul.
But, much like Uvek and Murtagh, we're blood brothers.
Yeah, hell yeah. Blood in, blood out.
Blood in, blood out. And we deserve to uphold each other's honor in this way.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have been in a real life book club with you. I'm glad to be in this on-air book club with you. I love you, man.
Oh, I love you too, man.
Okay. Well, thank you all for listening. Make sure to rate and review us, like and subscribe, especially on Apple Podcasts. See, this is why I don't do this normally.
Yeah.
I go rogue. Support us on Patreon and check out our social medias at Is This Just Fantasy Pod on TikTok or at Just Fantasy Pod on Instagram. If you have any questions about the inheritance cycle, we would still not call ourselves experts, but we will answer as best we can. We would love to hear from you, and you can email us at isthisjustfantasypod@gmail.com.
We did it.
Roll the tapes, Kevin.
It's just fantasy. We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. Come on and listen to us next time. Find out what our deep dive will be. Thanks for catching our show.